Hi, Ricci. Welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled to have you here today.
Well, I am so honored to be here, my darling. It's been a little while since we were together in person, and I feel so grateful we're back together.
I love it. And so, I mentioned this in the intro to you all, but I met Ricci at the portal here. Well, I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was lucky enough, one of my dear friends, Henna, who's been on the show, um, said, you got to come to this. And I heard Ricci speak about our intuition, our intuitive intelligence. And so I was blown away. And I immediately went to Henna. I said, Ricci's got to be on the show. I need to share her wisdom with all of you. So, we're going to be talking today about intuitive intelligence and how to access it. And Ricci is the queen. She's the queen of this. She has a whole, like I said before, she has a whole empire basically dedicated to helping us access our intuition and also to help practitioners teach and help other people access their intuition. So it's super fabulous. So let's start from the top because my question to you that night was, or you explained, intuition is not exactly the same as intuitive intelligence. So can you just give us all a primer on what each of those are and the importance of each of them?
Yeah, absolutely. They are the same thing, and the best way to think about it is that it's like a continuum, right? So if we think about intuition at one end, it is biological, it is innate, we all possess it. It's not special or magical. It's like part of the autonomic nervous system. And we all know it because we've all had experiences of that gut instinct of like something's not right, I need to check on my mom, or I need to, pick up the kids early. We just have that gut knowing that we need to take some kind of action. And often it's not logical, right? And that is it. That is a gut inbuilt biological functioning that every person on the planet possesses. And unfortunately, most of us stop there. Some of us might talk about gut instinct or that sense of like women's intuition is often how it's referred to. But what we do if we keep moving along the continuum is we get to the highest, most refined, most precise and accurate version of intuition that I call intuitive intelligence. So if you take the example of like you've got a lump of clay, that lump of clay is just fine, it's doing its thing. But if you bring the right tools and the artistry, you can turn it into this beautiful sculpture. And that's really how I feel about intuition versus intuitive intelligence. We've simply taken the time through our intention and attention to elevate that gut instinct from that primary biological level to the level of expertise, right? So it's like if we want that unfair advantage in our lives, if we want to be working from all of our intelligences at the highest level, intuitive intelligence is the key. And of course, we can talk more about what is that journey from lump of clay through to, sculpture. But that is the idea that it's still all within our capacity. It's not special. It's not a gift. But like if you want to learn French, you're probably going to have to take some steps, right? If you haven't been raised to speak French, you're going to have to either go there and immerse yourself in the culture, or you're going to pick up a book, or you're going to download an app, and you're going to put the effort in to go from bonjour, ça va, right? To being able to be completely fluent in French. So that is how we can think about this journey from intuition to intuitive intelligence.
So let me just back up and ask you, like, how did you discover that that was even available to us?
I it's a great question, and I'll try and keep it as precise as possible. I was raised from birth to know that I am divine, that I am connected, that there is all of this invisible support available to me. And I feel very blessed for that because it was never an issue. Like, for a lot of people who come to their practice of whether it's intuition or tarot cards or Reiki or healing of any kind, we often have to overcome all of the programming that we received in our childhood, whether through religion or having parents who were very maybe agnostic or did not want to, didn't raise you to believe or know yourself beyond your dominant senses, right? But I didn't have that impediment. So I guess I got that advantage there where as I matured into my own sense of what is my faith, what do I care about, I got really interested in intuition and I spent a lot of time studying it. And I had great teachers, but I got to the point where they could only take me so far because what I felt was happening is that it was so often intuition being used to bypass our reality. So, in a way, to not deal with things, not meet our shadow programs, our subconscious fears, our inherited limitations, but to try to kind of fantasize or avoid reality, right? Like, I worked as a shop psychic for years, and oh my God, that was the best training ground I ever had. And people would use me to try to get their answers answered, right? Their questions answered. So they didn't want to take personal responsibility. They didn't want to activate their own intuitive knowing. They wanted someone else to do it for them, usually because they were afraid, as we all are. When we have big life choices, we're afraid of making the wrong choice and we don't trust ourselves. And I can talk about why we don't trust ourselves. But it really taught me a lot about what I didn't want, what I didn't want to offer to others. So when I started teaching and training women to attune to their own intuitive knowing, my starting point was this is not about you doing intuition for others. This is about you being the oracle. And what we need to do is figure out the conditions. So it was really looking at what is out there in the world, which basically tells us if it's not a psychic, it's a healer, or it's, excuse me, the tarot cards or the pendulum. There's always something outside of us that's going to give us the answer. And I was like, no, let's turn that on its head. We are the conduit. We have direct access to that higher understanding of the patterns and information that's available to us. And that is how I decided to establish the Institute because I wanted to give women in particular the opportunity to reclaim their power. And that's really what this is all about for me.
I love it. Okay. Thank you for that little bit of that backstory. So, I'm just, a regular Joe. We're working, we're all doing the things. And for all you out there listening, this was why I really, this night with Ricci was like so amazing. I was going through something that day. I actually made a business decision. And you've heard it if you listen to the last week's podcast. I told you all I was going through, adjusting hormones and doing all the things I've needed to do. And I didn't feel totally myself. And I felt like I couldn't actually access my intuition, but I made a pretty drastic decision for something. And I asked Ricci that night, I said, is it possible for us to access our intuition, even though you feel like you can't access it? And that was like the day I was having. I said, I don't feel like I have any inner knowing. I have zero knowing, but I know
Yeah.
I need to make a decision. So I made that decision.
Yeah.
So can you like explain like what happened? You said to me, I made a decision based like something to the effect of from a traumatic place, like a place of trauma and not pure intuition. Can we go into that a little bit?
We absolutely can. And I think you've hit on something that is the conundrum for most of us when we think about relying on our intuition consistently is how can I trust it? How can I trust myself, right? There's no evidence, there's not a pros and cons list. We're not asking ChatGPT, we're not analyzing all of the data. We're relying on something that seems to know without knowing how we know, right? And so that's a big leap in faith in ourselves to be able to trust that we can rely on that information, even when maybe everyone else is saying you're wrong or you got to do it like this or whatever. And we as women in particular are primed to externalize our authority. So we'll rely on someone else's assessment before we'll trust ourselves, right? And again, this is why intuition for me comes back to power. It's like the reclamation of our personal authority. So what you're describing is so commonplace, and I don't mean to diminish the intensity of the experience for you, but when we're trying to access that higher level of intuition, that intuitive intelligence, which you've experienced, right? You've probably made so many choices from that place. We cannot receive that knowing into a dysregulated system. And often when we have a really big choice, we're a bit dysregulated, right? Because, oh my God, I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to get it wrong. And so all that self-awareness that we normally have feels like it's on the fritz. Like, as you described it, I didn't feel like myself. And I'm assuming that yourself in your normal functioning is confident, self-assured, self-reliant, clear. You know, you are probably really good at making decisions in a rapid fire way without getting into your head, without overthinking it, right? And still being really grounded and reasonable in it. But when we're in that state of, oh my God, this is a crossroads moment, the whole nervous system goes into dysregulation, right? We can't find that sense of inner authority that we normally have. And it makes sense. But there is an antidote to that. And part of that idea that we were touching on that night in our conversation was we can mistake our intuition because, in fact, it's a trauma response. So, the very first thing I do when I am teaching women how to be in their intuitive intelligence so they can trust it, take action upon it, and back themselves 100%, regardless of dissenting voices, is we start with the body, right? We start with creating the conditions for what I call nervous system fitness. We're going to regulate and dysregulate all the time. That's being alive. But it's the fitness that helps us recover from that dysregulation more efficiently, right? Instead of being, someone says, hey, I don't like what you do or whatever, instead of going into a 3-week downward spiral into all your own stuff, we can feel that discomfort. I feel criticized. That's bringing up my fear of abandonment. I'm not feeling safe. And instead of staying there in a fit nervous system, we can come back to that inner authority much more quickly. So that's what we're trying to do is, first of all, prepare the vessel, right? Your intuition is coming into and through the body. So there's no way you can be stressed, anxious, worried, and hope you're going to be really clear in your intuition. So if I had been with you that day, I would have taken you through some breath work, maybe some movement. We would have done some guided visualization together to bring you back into your center, your inner authority. And only then would we have looked at, okay, what's the right action to take here, right? So we'll often reach for our intuition when we're really dysregulated because we don't know what to do. But that's actually the opposite of what we should do. The first step is every day, am I doing something to support my nervous system fitness? Am I slowing down, right? I have the 4 S's is stillness, silence, solitude, and slowness. Every day, we should be giving these qualities to ourselves, even if it's for 20 minutes. So intentional stillness, where the body comes into rest, where we're not like, watching something on YouTube or we're distracted or we're thinking, but just coming into as much stillness as we can. That solitude part is a huge piece where we are not available for anybody else. The phone's not dinging. The kids aren't allowed to, grab our attention. We're just in intentional solitude. And that slowness is that energy of, can I slow down my breathing? Can I slow down my heart rate? Can I slow down my brainwave state? Can I just bring everything into a sense of letting go of the rushing, no matter how busy I am? And these qualities allow us to be in the right state to receive our intuitive knowing, right? But most of us are running either on autopilot or 100 miles an hour, and we're constantly stressing our system out. And then we're like, I don't know what my intuition's trying to tell me. And I'm like, okay, so let's look to your life, right? And that's where we start. We start with changing that addiction to busyness, the overdoing, the overgiving, the being available 100% of the time, the rushing, rushing, rushing. And we carve out, if we're serious about turning intuition into our highest form of intelligence, giving ourselves these qualities every day. And because it's so simple, we will often not do it, right? We often like things when they're more complicated. You got to fly to Tibet and climb a mountain and take this special herb and open your pineal gland, and then you'll have it. And you're like, sure, sign me up. But you mean every day I have to spend 20 minutes in stillness, silence, solitude, and slowness? Yeah, right? We'll overlook it because it's too simple.
Oh my gosh, that's so helpful. And I asked you that question and used my example because, like you said, and I didn't feel minimized at all because I simply know most everybody listening is dealing with this kind of stuff. Like we're
Yeah.
all making big decisions and there's multiple things happening all at once and you feel completely, I think it's a quality of midlife, although there's so many great ones, there's that feeling of overwhelm and big decisions and big life things happening. And so it's interesting to kind of peel things apart and go, is it this? Is it this? Is it that? But if we don't slow down to listen, like you're saying, and be still, I love these four S's. It's just going to be this loop we're in all the time.
Yeah.
So say we've done those four tips, and you mentioned breath work and some other ways to sort of access your intelligence. And I know we did a couple exercises that night. So is there like a top one or two things we can all do to help us? We've done all these other things. We're kind of like, oh, we're still kind of jittery and we need to like really make a big decision. What would be like the one or two things you would recommend for everyone?
Well, going back to this idea of, is it my intuition or is it my fear or my, trauma? Once we've done the stillness, silence, solitude, slowness, we're actually really available to that deeper wisdom, whether we call it our higher self or the quantum mind or source or spirit, whatever you refer to it as. So we're then able to be more receptive. And that is where we actually need to do the deepest part. And I have a process which I'm so happy to share with your audience called the micro method, which is like a really short 7-minute practice. It's on Insight Timer as well. It's had like 150,000 plays, like 10,000 reviews. And it's really profound because what we're doing with this now fit nervous system, we're in the right state, is we are going to start exploring what is the dominant fear program that is blocking my clarity in this decision or my access to my intuition or whatever it is arising for us in that moment, right? And we use this very simple, very elegant process to effectively change the way that the brain is programmed to respond, right? We know the brain will take the most well-worn path because it's conserving energy. The brain is intentionally lazy. So if we are constantly traveling a path and firing and wiring the synapses of I don't know what to do, I'm too busy, it's too overwhelming, I've got brain fog, the HRT's not working like I thought it would, like my kids are leaving home, or whatever, all of the things that can come at us in this stage of our life, we will just keep traveling down those same pathways in the brain. And so we need a circuit breaker. And this practice of the micro method is that circuit breaker. One of the biggest differences in the way that I teach intuition is that we are already 100% the most intuitive being on the planet, every one of us. But what stops us from knowing that and embodying it and trusting it are those subconscious fear programs. And midlife is such a blessing because we're often at the point where we're like, am I allowed to swear?
Oh, yes.
Okay, enough of this shit, right? I'm not taking it anymore. That's often where we're often feeling anger and we will think it's hormones changing. Actually, it's like we're detoxing all of this BS that we have carried for decades of who we're supposed to be, the good girl, the good wife, the, polite woman. And we're at the point where we're like, I do not care anymore what you think of me. I am willing to, take up more space. I'm willing to piss people off. I'm willing to, not be compliant in my own, servitude. I'm not going to be what everybody else needs. So we're primed to release our fear programs. We're often more self-aware. We've lived, we've experienced, we've lost, we've gone through trauma, we've gone through grief. And so we've got all this wisdom. And it's our job then to humbly sit at the feet of that fear, right? And instead of running away from it, which we've done all our lives through food addiction, alcohol addiction, picking fights with our partner, buying stuff we don't need, all of our distractions to bypass the fear, we are now courageous enough as these midlife warriors to say, come on, bring it. Show me what I'm missing. Show me what is needing to be altered here. So this process of the micro method, 7 minutes, you basically tap into a feeling. Maybe, on that day you were like in self-doubt, maybe a little bit of self-criticism, maybe there was fear around, getting it wrong, maybe there was a sense of risk that you might mess something up or you miss an opportunity, whatever it was. And we simply sit with that, having come into these conditions of stillness, silence, solitude, slowness, and we say, What's deeper than that? What's deeper than that, right? What's beneath this initial layer of stress, anxiety, worry? And we don't go looking for an answer with the mind. We simply stay with the body and we let the body, which is the seat of our intuition, respond. And it might suddenly be you have a memory or you see a flash of a word or you have a symbol. It's like fear of abandonment, right? And you're like, whoa. So this one decision I need to make about my business is connected to this. Yeah, I know that fear. I felt that since, my dad left when I was 3 and whatever the story is. But oh my God, now I see, right? I'm operating from this shadow, this fear of abandonment. And now I have the information that I need to understand what I really need to be attending to. So this is our intuition in action, but it's not guarantee me the outcome will be perfect and predict my future so I'll never make a bad choice and nothing will ever go wrong. We grow through the things that seem to go wrong, right? So here we then have the opportunity to retrain the brain to travel a new pathway, to fire and wire different synapses. So instead of running from the fear of abandonment, for example, we sit with it and we tend to it like it's one of our babies. We just hold it close, say, I'm so sorry, I've been neglecting you, I've been running from you. And I'm so grateful that you've shown up so that I get to know myself better, to clear out this subconscious fear and align with my true path. And we do that by cultivating this feeling of gratitude. And we do that for like 3 minutes. And what you're doing in your brain, both the chemistry and the literal formation of it, is you're taking a different path. So you are rewiring the brain so that you are not going to run from your fear the next time it rises and you can stay with what is the intuition. I know that's a long answer, but the summary of it is basically fear is intuition. In that moment that you were having that doubt about the decision, right? You were getting good intuition, but you didn't necessarily know what to do with it, right? And that's the thing, because most of us have not taught how to sit with our fear, even with our children. Like if they're uncomfortable or they're in pain or they're upset, we're like, oh, hey, have a lolly or have, what do you call them? Candy. Hey, it's okay, have this. Here's the iPad, right? We distract them from their own discomforts and worries rather than letting them build that resilience. And then we spend our lives doing that. So we're learning how to build an inner resilience to sit with the discomforts, the fears that arise, because that is actually where the intuition is.
It's funny, I've never heard fear, being described as an intuition,
Yeah.
about your intuition. Fear just kind of always sat over here as fear. Like, oh, we all have fear, but I never heard it sort of connected to
It
intuition.
is it is the biggest difference in the way that we teach the development of intuition. And it is exactly what intuitive intelligence is. It's right, the courage to sit humbly at the feet of what we are most afraid of in any moment and to say, what's deeper than that, right? Because ultimately the fear then is free to go. The fear is intuition, but we don't want to keep it, right? We don't want to stay in fear, but we want to honor it. It's the same, like anything we neglect gets bigger. Like if you forget to pay the parking fine, you then get all the admin fees and then you get the court notice. It's like, oh, I'll deal with that later, right? We want to kind of bypass the difficult things. And this is the revolution where we become what our women are described as in the Institute as fear huntresses, right? We actually go hunting for our subconscious fears because they are often based in big T and little t trauma, right? So unless we are willing to move that trauma, and the body knows how to do that, again, it's often about us getting out of the way and just creating that nervous system fitness so the body can detox from the neuropeptides that are storing the fear. The fear is like a messenger, it's pointing us towards truth. But first, we have to meet the illusion, and the illusion is fear. So, your belief that I will be abandoned if I take this action, right? It's all happening at the subconscious. That wasn't in your mind as you were thinking, what should I do? But the subconscious was like, you will be abandoned. You will be alone forever. You will get it wrong and no one will love you. That was the story for example, in the subconscious. And so we follow the messenger of fear so that we can tend to the fear so the body can release it. And suddenly we have all this space where our connection to our intuitive knowing is even bigger, right? Because we don't have the fear taking up the space anymore. So it isn't about I must now live with fear all of the time. It's actually understanding that fear is a messenger of intuition, leading us to the point where you took on a faulty belief, a familial program, a trauma response, and it needs to be released in order for you to come back into your inner authority.
Oh, okay. I love this. Oh my God. I'm just thinking about a thousand more questions now. Um, so how, like, I mean, this is me coming from the whole, type A control, like I like a plan. So,
Yeah.
how long does it take? I'm sure it's like flexing a muscle, right? So we're kind of here if we're all accessing this level of intuition, then to kind of get to intuitive intelligence takes practice, right? So it's like probably going to the gym. So my question was like, how long does it take, or does it take everybody different amounts of time, or just depending where we are, or just to kind of give us all hope that if we do what you say, um, that we're going to be able to access what we need to
Yeah.
access.
I think it's a great question. And, part of my mission is to provide empirical evidence-based data so that you can feel like it's not just trust the vibe of the thing, right? Like you actually want to know that there is a systematic process you can follow and that you will absolutely see change over time. It is not time and space, right? We are not measuring this by time and space because we all know in our self-awareness journeys or our spiritual paths, we'll often be on blind faith, like months, years even. And then suddenly one day it's just like we have the aha moment and everything lands and we're like, oh my God, I get it, right? I was just plugging away at this for so long. And then in an instant, it seems to arrive. And that instant can happen at the beginning, day one, or it can happen at day 100, right? It's not measurable through time and space. It's really intention and attention. So by that, I mean, are you willing to put enough attention upon the task? Like if you want a six pack, as you say, you go to the gym, right? You're not going to get the six pack sitting on the couch eating ice cream, thinking about it. How am I going to show up? Where am I going to place my attention consistently enough to bring this new status quo into being? And that is where our intention matters so much, right? If our intention is scattered 100 different ways, like puppies, distracted by every bright, shiny thing, we will lose so much energy. So we don't have to wait. It's not like a 6-month program, a year-long program. It's like it is the intensity of your focus, your intention and attention, which is often about what will you be willing to say no to rather than adding more in. Because this process of intuitive intelligence coming alive in us is this process of stripping back, not adding more. And we love adding more. Like I said, if I said to you, Jen, you just have to hop on a plane, come on a retreat with me in Bali, 7 days, bang, you'll come out the most intuitive person on the planet. You'd be like, okay, cool, I can do that, right? Because I know where to pay the money and how to get to Bali and I'll do the thing. But if I'm like, okay, you're going to sit in silence, stillness, solitude every day, no excuses. No matter how much is on your plate, you're going to carve out 20 minutes for the next 6 months. You'll be like, can I just buy the ticket to Bali? Like, no, I'm using you as my example, but you understand the analogy, right? But this is a stripping back process, not an adding more. So if we are not willing to say no to the things that prevent us from having that 20 minutes a day, the busyness, the rushing, the addiction to that busyness and rushing, our need to be constantly approved of by everybody else, by being the servant to everybody else's needs before our own. All of these programs, if we're not willing to say no, even to someone saying, hey, do you want to have lunch today? And that's the one window you've got time to sit in these practices. And you're like, oh, I don't want to let that person down because I know they're having a hard time. I don't really want to go, but I will. You are contradicting your intention and attention, right? So much of this is about what am I willing to say no to, no matter how uncomfortable that is. And if we are really willing to cultivate a life that allows us to have access to these qualities, that allows us to stay in regulation, then, as I said, you will suddenly find access to that deeper inner authority, that intuitive intelligence like that, right? But if you're bullshitting yourself, and you're like, yeah, 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 I absolutely want to be the most intuitively intelligent person on the planet because I know that is what is going to bring all my other intelligences into a higher level of functioning. And that is the truth. Intuitive intelligence increases our analytical intelligence, our creative intelligence, our emotional intelligence, and I can tell you why. But if we are not willing to do what we say we want, we are incongruent, right? So we are a mismatch between what we say and the action we're taking in the world. And intuition does not let you get away with that, not for 1 second, right? So it's that willingness. Am I willing to piss people off, to disappoint people, to not meet the impossible standards I've set for myself, to have a messy house, to order takeout, just so that I can actually tend to that nervous system regulation, give myself the space, meet the subconscious fears every day. So it's consistency over time, but the shift can happen anywhere.
Oh,
So,
God.
yeah.
Okay, we all need to be doing this, y'all. And everyone's heard me say, say no. I mean, there's a podcast episode dedicated, you will love this, to saying no and how to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just a muscle. It's very hard for us to say no. And it's really one of the most crucial things we can do, especially a lot of women listening. We're pivoting and wondering what's next and what's new. So this is going to be a really important episode for y'all to like go back and listen to again and again, because we got to listen to ourselves.
Yeah.
And you're telling us actually how to properly do it versus, you can go on a walk, but you're giving us even these next steps that actually can help us go a bit deeper. And I know everyone, I can't go out to lunch with anyone now, anyone in kind of, I'm 55, but everyone's, there's so many things draining. Women are crying. We're all kind of about to fall over and burst into flames because
Yeah.
of all the things. And
Yeah.
this is why this is such an incredibly important conversation. I needed you to be on here because we have put ourselves dead last. And this is the beautiful thing about now. It's like, no. And guess what? And you're going to say this too, because I'm like, the benefits of doing this, not only for yourself, but of course, everyone around you. I can only imagine
Yeah.
that if you're listening to yourself,
Yeah.
accessing your intelligence, everything else is going to benefit. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, but I'm assuming that's the case, Ricci.
It's 1,000,000% the way it is. And this is the thing. We often think that we can treat ourselves one way, but tell others that they should treat themselves another way. And again, it's like you can't break the law here. You cannot be a contradiction. So, for example, we say to our daughters, trust yourself, tend to yourself, look after yourself, be prepared to say no, don't be, bullied, or, you are so worthy. And then we go away and do all the same negative programming to ourselves, right? So we can't say one thing and do another. The intuition will not let you get away with that. It's like the best barometer for bullshit. But I love what you're saying because there is a crisis in and both an opportunity for women of this age, right? We have more knowledge and information than we've ever had about what is actually happening to our bodies and why it is significant and should be acknowledged and honored. But at the same time, the conditions in our external life have not altered to now accommodate this massive, massive change that we're all working through. And that starts much earlier than we've ever been told and is so much more nuanced and complex, right? But whilst we're getting the information, we are not giving ourselves permission to change our lives necessarily to match what we are now needing, nor are we seeing the world give us that permission. I want to touch on something here that's so intertwined with this. I talk about increasing access to our intuitive intelligence really as an act of being willing to increase our self-worth. You literally cannot have one without the other. So the only way you're going to feel safe to say no is if you can back yourself. That self-worth is so there, so anchored, that no is coming from an absolute place of love, self-respect, and clear communication with the other, right? No, thank you. I love you. Not, oh, look, no, actually, I'm a bit sick today, or, I'd love to, the 100 excuses we come up with because we can't just say no. And we can't say it because we have never been taught that we have true value, right? The patriarchal world has not taught us that. The capitalist world has not taught us that. We have to be doing, giving, giving, giving in order to have value. So this internalization, this increase of spiritual self-esteem, or you might just call it, self-esteem, but that sense of knowing I am worthy to treat myself first as I want others to treat me and how I treat others. And that is what will increase intuition more than anything. And then when you say no, you are saying it with such self-love that the person receives it that way. Oh, yeah, I feel that. Yeah, no, that's a really good choice. And actually, today would be a really good day for me to stay home and start that book I've been meaning to write. This is like maybe I called you for lunch because actually I didn't want to sit down and start writing that book. And now I can feel that. So thank you so much for saying no, because you're actually giving me the opportunity to be who I really want to be and not be constantly distracted. So there's a beautiful reciprocity, right? It isn't necessarily going to happen straight away, but if we are advocating for ourselves from that inner authority, everybody else will respond in that same way. It might take a little re-education if you've been the doormat, if you've been the friend that's always available, if you're the one who puts yourself last all the time, to re-educate the energy and the people around you, but it will happen. And there's no way that we can increase our intuition and move into that state of being of intuitive intelligence without being willing to change our minds about ourselves, without being willing to back ourselves and know that we are worthy.
Mm. Okay, y'all, I think this might be one of the most important conversations we've ever had here because this is really the root of everything because we're making big decisions. There's big life changes, like really big decisions are happening right now. And I do believe there's a lot of suffering. And I say this for myself too, because my mind, oh my God, sometimes I pray for a frontal lobe lobotomy because I don't want to be thinking so much. But I love this because it's helping all of us frame our experience and like acknowledge that we actually aren't going crazy. There's all this stuff there's happening with our body, there's societal things, and because of our shifting, our brain is shifting in midlife and things are bubbling up. And I know a lot of women, myself included, because I sat on the sideline, we all still do it. You make a couple steps and then you still push things down, like something's going to keep knocking on the door.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest takeaway here is to listen to yourself. And you've got now tips and tools from Ricci and how to access it, and you really understand. And she's got books, and she's gonna talk to you about that. But this has been a really great conversation because saying no and you got to say yes to yourself.
Yeah.
And so you can access that intelligence. My final question, because I'm a big like 5D believer, and I've done like Joe Dispenza, the books, and alternate timelines, and just allow. And what's been really interesting like the past 6 months is I haven't been able to visualize or access anything because of probably everything you've just said. I haven't done the steps you've outlined. It's this heightened state and there's just so much going on. Like, where is it, where is my intuitive intelligence? I can't make a decision, and it's been going on for a long time. And so this is just also important. And I lost my train of thought because it's menopause, but I know where I'm going. And that is, I used to be able to so clearly picture what I want and then wake up one day, I think you were saying before, I'm like, oh, there it is. And it's been so muddied and clouded.
Yeah.
And so I guess the $1 million question is, by accessing our intuitive intelligence, and then do we have, I think you've said this too, we have this access to this higher consciousness, and maybe this for all my people out there into the 5D world and that, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
does that, I'm assuming that helps.
It does. I mean, I love that you've mentioned that. There's so much we haven't covered as well, but there is lots of resources, as you say. But intuitive intelligence is the connection to the 5D. So we can think of that as the non-local consciousness. So yes, absolutely, it's vital to be having that understanding. The 3D is the local or the material plane. The 5D, the non-local, is that infinite quantum mind, the unified field that contains all time and space. And that bridge is intuition, right? What brings the information from the 5D to the 3D to help you make your choices is intuition. And it comes through, as you said, for you, it's visual, it sounds like. For me, it's sentience, which means it's feeling. For others, it's voyance, it's hearing. For some, it's cognizance, it's knowing. And I think what you're describing is so beautiful because what is also happening at this stage of our life is there is also a willingness to get more humble because we recognize, we're not valued by the world in the same way. That's why we have to even be better at our self-worth, right? But we are also in a process of unbecoming. And what you're describing to me in this sense of not having clear, absolute, this is what I want, this actually feels like a beautiful evolution. I'm actually really grateful to hear that because that I don't know, that uncertainty is actually as much of a blessing as absolutely knowing what you want 100% of the time, which remember might actually have sometimes been either a trauma response or a control response or the ego just being a bully and, barreling through and forcing rather than this kind of sea of, what else is possible? Maybe I'm uncertain right now because there's a bigger vision coming and I have to unbecome all my stories of who I am so that I can so radically make myself available to something I have never even imagined. So you're going beyond the limits of your imagination right now. And I would say honor that. You're in an initiation. And if it's possible, this is the time where we wait on the will of heaven, if you like. This is where we say, okay, it's not time to act because when it is, I will know. That 5 dimension will collapse into the 3rd dimension through my intuition and my inspiration will lead me. So can I make myself comfortable with the unknown because I can feel that I am birthing a new version of myself. And if I don't rush it, if I humbly sit with this, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, that feels freeing, right? I don't need to know right now. When I do need to know, I trust that I will know. Does that have resonance?
100%. 100%. I'm kind of like, if y'all are, you can watch this on YouTube. I think my mouth is like open. 100% because there have been two big things that I've been sitting on for almost one for a year and one for 6 months. Things that are complete that I haven't put into the world. And it's exactly this. I'm in this personal place of, I think, this next evolution. And it hasn't, because all of us think logically, and we've all just checked boxes and the way the world, the traditional business world works, and 6 month planning and this and that, and you got to know and what's coming up and blah blah blah. And sure, there's certain things that you're going to do to keep the lights on, but with some bigger business decisions that will change things, what you're saying, it's actually what I've intuitively felt. I've said to myself, I literally said it today, Ricci. I said, there's a reason why I haven't done this thing.
Yeah.
It's done. It's ready to go. There's a reason why I haven't done it.
Yeah.
So I'm allowing it to marinate and see, I might toss it in the can.
Yeah. Or you might wake up tomorrow and be like, let's pull the trigger, right?
Let's pull the trigger. Exactly. But I haven't had, because when I've had deep knowing about things, I've done them and they've been great and you're vibrating and it's all great. And it impacts everyone and what have you. But so interesting. And you said something, what did you say? You said, it's not the right time to act. So I really want everyone to take that to heart.
Yeah.
Because in our world, the way it's structured, you need to know your next steps and what to do and to make your big thing and make your claim and all of that. That's very patriarchal, linear, and it doesn't really probably tap into like our feminine intelligence too, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So fascinating. Woo! So okay, I'm good. Just like I
You're
have
great.
to for the sign.
You are so great, right? I think one of the last things I'll say, because I know we need to wrap up, is one of the gifts of perimenopause for me has been the total and utter physical exhaustion. And the gift in it is I cannot hustle. I have deprogrammed myself from hustling because I literally can't. I mean, there is nothing to give. And so, what that has meant is that I have to be okay with things moving at a different pace. And it's actually the greatest blessing at this stage of our life because we are not able to just push ourselves through as we used to do in our 20s and 30s, right? We got to honor this body because she is gonna take, she is in charge, right? We cannot just keep pushing ourselves without putting big consequences on us. So I love that gift of being in perimenopause where I'm far more aligned because I have to be really discerning about what I give my energy to because there is a finite supply. And I think that goes to what you're saying is right. There is knowing, you've already described it. You will know right action at the right time. But it's part of what I feel like is happening is you're unlearning a kind of response, as you say, to fulfill the capitalist agenda where we just have to keep pumping, pumping, pumping. And actually, something so much more magical is here, and it will have bigger impact by your willingness to sit with it rather than rush it.
I think we're ending on such a great note too, because of tying in this phase, perimenopause, menopause, and the way our brains are changing, and just what I've learned, and how our actual intelligence changes. And we could do that thing, but for me, all my listeners know, if you've been around here for a while, like I had a major burnout way back when, and that was because kids and babies, and of course you can do all the like 800 things and put yourself last, and and that didn't end up well. And so I've also been having that knowing of when I'm restructuring and doing these things I want to do and work, it cannot be that hustle every day because I have like a physical reaction against it.
Oh, yeah, me too. Oh, yeah.
And I think it's a really good thing for everyone to take away. And it doesn't mean you can't be successful and make money. You just have to figure out what it's going to be that's going to work with who you are. God, we could talk a whole other hour about just this,
Yeah.
but accessing what you want. So you save the trauma and drama of not actually doing the thing you want to do. And then couple that with, saying no, and then understanding and allowing this intelligence to come through. I'm so, God, this is so perfectly timed. Y'all know this is my podcast is selfish. I bring people on because I need to like figure things out, but so y'all understand now why Ricci needed to be on this podcast, because we could talk forever, but woo, we've got to take the time, we've got to say no, and we've got to listen, and we're going to use all those tools that Ricci mentioned, and we're going to put ourselves first, and we're going to allow, and we're going to wait for our signs and listen to ourselves. Oh my God, this has been so amazing. Okay, so everybody finishes this sentence at the end of the show, and that's you're not too fucking old too. So Ricci, you're not too fucking old too.
Change your mind about yourself.
That should be a bumper sticker. That is a good one. That should be a bumper sticker. All right. So where can everybody find you, follow you, support you, buy your books? And I'm just going to hold this up. This is the one I read. And you have another book coming out, right? Spiritually Fierce is the one I've got.
Yes, so I have Spiritually Fierce. That is a beautiful starting place, and it has a whole bunch of practices, and it goes a lot into what we've talked about and a lot more. That's available at all online bookstores, Amazon, wherever you buy your books. And you can head to the Institute for Intuitive Intelligence.com. That is my global intuitive intelligence training school, and we go everywhere. We do lots of amazing things and lots of online work. And on Instagram, Intuitive Intelligence Institute, I have a YouTube channel that also has a lot of great resources for free. And there's the podcast, Spiritually Fierce, which you will have to come on and have a chat with me. But yeah, Spiritually Fierce, the book, is a great starting place. You can also find me on Insight Timer, and that meditation that I mentioned is there. But I will also share the recording. It's only 7 minutes. Even if that's the one thing that everybody decides to do each day, out of this, you will increase access to your intuitive intelligence so efficiently. So I think that's all the things.
A lot of things to remember. So we're going to link all that in the show notes, of course. You'll have access to that. Thank you, Ricci. It has just been an honor to have you on today. This has been like mind blowing for me, hopefully mind blowing for all of you. We're going to do our homework. We're going to do our things, but we're also not going to try to be perfectionists about it and have timelines. We're going to do it the way we need to do it.
Yes.
Thank you for being here, Ricci.
My absolute privilege, my darling. You're doing amazing work in the world, and I'm so grateful for you.
Oh, I'm grateful for you.